Lesson 3. How can energy supplies be increased? What are the advantages and disadvantages of non-renewable sources? Global oil production was nearly 4 billion tonnes in 2006. This represents a fairly modest increase of 37% on 1973 production levels and suggests that oil reserves are more limited than coal. Oil production at the global scale is geographically less dispersed than coal. 70% of production originates in the Middle East. The OECD countries, mainly the United States and the former USSR, output is relatively small in Australia and the Pacific, South Asia and Europe. This spatial pattern of production remained more or less unchanged in the period between 1973 to 2006. Several of the largest oil producers, such as United States and China, cannot satisfy domestic demand from their own production and rely on huge oil imports. Other major oil importers, such as the EU and Japan, have minimal resources of their own. Oil exports are dominated by the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE and Kuwait. Between them, these four countries account for nearly 1/3 of oil exports. Russia, Nigeria, Norway, Mexico and Venezuela are important exporters outside the Middle East. Because crude oil is shipped in huge tankers, transport costs per tonne are low and distance from markets has little influence on production. For example, the typical cost of transporting crude oil from the Middle East to the United States works out at only 0.5 cents per litre. Nuclear power produces just over 6% of the total world energy and 15% of the world's electricity. Because of its advanced technology and high cost, nuclear power generation has been mainly concentrated in more developed countries. Countries such as France and Japan, with limited resources of fossil fuels, have invested heavily in nuclear power. Today, France has 59 nuclear reactors supplying 78% of its electricity. Meanwhile, nuclear power is expanding in several less developed countries. Both China and India are building reactors and expect to increase their generating capacity several times over by 2015. During the 1960s and 1970s, the nuclear energy industry expanded rapidly and was seen as the answer to the world's energy problems. Then two serious accidents dented confidence and sent the industry into decline. The first at 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania in 1979 caused a partial melting of the reactor core. The second at Chernobyl in Ukraine in 1986 was far more serious and resulted in large amounts of radioactive material escaping into the environment. Since 1986, no new nuclear power stations have been ordered in the United States or in the UK. By the turn of the century, government attitudes in more developed countries was beginning to change. Nuclear power was viewed as a more attractive option because 1. Nuclear reactors emit almost no greenhouse gases, which are responsible for climate change. 2. Nuclear power offers energy security. Uranium, the fuel used in nuclear reactors, is available from many sources and from politically stable and friendly countries such as Canada and Australia.